Hi, it's Annalie. I am so thrilled to have been asked to do a weekend takeover with you at Altenew. And so I'm going to try to keep it a little bit simple today. I remember when I started out, I felt like a lot of the techniques were way above my level. So I'm just going to go back to some kind of basics and maybe come up with some new ideas, some new ways to use products that you might already have. So I have already gone ahead and I have this Trellis background die from Altenew. And what I'm going to do is when I started, I always just kept the cutout part. But what I've decided now to do, I'm going to remove the background and I'm going to try to keep all of these negative pieces. Some of them will stay in spot, some of them will not. With this, it doesn't matter because they're all the same shape. So if they get mixed up, it really doesn't make any difference at all. So I'm just going to take them out and not worry about it. And then we'll use those later. So I think first thing we're going to do is just make the backgrounds, and then eventually I will get to the cards. So I don't really have a product list at the moment because when I make a card, I wing it. So I'm kind of waiting for my new crafty flower of the month to show up, and then maybe I'll make the cards after I have that. But anyway, to start with, I have this, which I use a pretty thick cardstock. I think this is a 110 pound cardstock, so it makes for a nice thick layer. And what I used to do is just take a piece of cardstock, any kind of cardstock. I have my neutrals right here next to me. So I would automatically just cut this out, glue it down, add some flowers, and that was my card. But now I have decided that there are so many different ways to use this piece of cardstock. You can use it as a stencil, you can use it as the background. There's so many different things. So I think what we're going to do first, we're going to use it as a stencil. And I have it on my sticky mat, but because it's the same size of the cardstock that I'm going to be ink blending, I am going to just add some tape just to the outside edge and hope that that will hold it in place. And I'll do another one right here. I have all this tape that I have used. It's just stuck right to my die cutting machine. That way I can use it over and over and over again until it's no longer sticky. So I have it right handy right here next to me. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to ink blend. So I think I'll use some purples today. So I'm going to start with Lavender Fields, and then I'll progress to Deep Iris and then Midnight Violet. I also love the soft lavender, soft lilac, but it's a little too light. Well, maybe I'll try it. I'll start with that. And then we'll do like an ombre look. And I'm just going to go right over my stencil. I'm calling this a stencil because that's what I'm using it for right now. But it is the die cut. So I'll do that. And then I'll come in with the Lavender Fields. I'm not using an Altenew brush here. I don't have the large brushes. So this one it's just from Michael's, but it does its purpose. I do need to get a set of the larger brushes. I do have a set, but I use them for my Distress Oxides. So I don't use them for my regular inks, but I definitely need to get some. And I think the Deep Iris is next. I'll go back to the Lavender Fields just to blend that line together a little bit better. forgot to do it with the lilac, and hopefully I don't have too much dark ink on there. And then Midnight Violet right here on the bottom. And then just to make sure that there's a nice blend, I'll go right over that line again to give a nice blend. Now, put these back where they belong. Now I can just remove my tape. Put it back on my die cutting machine. And now I have two backgrounds. So I can use the stencil background, or I can use the die cut background and add that onto another piece of paper, cardstock. I always call it paper, so please forgive me when I'm calling it paper. I hope you understand that I do mean cardstock, because I do use a nice heavy thickness of cardstock. So I could glue this down to make a background here. I could cut partial pieces. I could, you know, make a design like that. Or before we glue this down, we're going to use it for another bit of a project. And I think for this one, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to change up the color. I'll use some azurite, is a pretty one. So I'm just going to blend on here. I'm just going to make this a solid color. I could use a colored cardstock. I almost never grab a colored cardstock. I almost always make my own. I don't know why. I have cardstock, but I just don't use it. So I'm just going to go like that, just so we have a different color here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back, I'm going to put it on here, and again, I'm going to just use my tape and tape it into place. This time we're adding a little bit of dimension to our background. I think we all think of adding dimension when we do a sentiment strip, when we add our beautiful Altenew flowers. Those add a lot of dimension, but we can also use these. Now, I did not, because I didn't color the paper first, my squares are going to be white. If you wanted a different color for your squares, I could have done the ombre. I could actually now die cut this, and then I would have an ombre colored, the ombre colored squares, but I didn't do that. So one option is to ink blend your cardstock first and then cut it out, but I didn't do that. So I'm going to just use the white squares and pop those out. And I don't need all of them because I'm not going to use all of them. I have some of these Simon Says Stamp foam dots. These are the perfect size for this project. And then I'm just going to put a foam dot in some of these squares to form a little pattern. Any kind of pattern will work. It doesn't really have to be a pattern that follows any rhyme or reason. It can just be wherever you want to add these. And then take the cover, the backing off, which sometimes plays nicer than other times. I'll take these all off. And then I can just add some of these right into place. And of course you could do it without using this as a guide, but then your lines might not be straight. So I like to use this as a guide and just put them right in between the grid lines. And that one's a little crooked. But this can work with so many different background dies that you might already have. It doesn't have to be this one. And of course, if I had colored the cardstock before, it could be a different effect because it could be different colors. I could have a dark blue or I could have a purple in there. And I'm doing this without a plan. Like I said, I don't normally plan out my cards. I wing it. So then when I go to put flowers or something else on here, they don't always fit exactly right because I wing it. I make it work. That's part of the fun of being a so-called artist, is that we get to do what we want. We get to figure things out. If we make a mistake, part of the fun of for me is making a mistake and then figuring out how to fix it. I actually like to do that. It's a little bit of a challenge. I'm gonna put this here. I probably shouldn't have put these onto my sticky mat because they're much harder to pick up that way. But this just gives a little bit of dimension that's so fun to play with. All right. I could add some to the middle. I'm not going to right now just because, like I said before, I don't really know what I'm going to add on here to be the focal point. But this does make a kind of a cool dimensional background. Can you see the dimension in there? So it's just kind of fun to play with. And if you like to do puzzles, especially if you like to do puzzles, this is kind of a fun technique because really you're just piecing things together. So you can do the same thing even with this colored one that we've done and just add a couple squares on here. And again, mine are white just because I was too lazy to color them beforehand. But you could color them in a whole bunch of different colors and then add them on. I'm not going to do this whole one because it's the same kind of thing. And I'm not even going to use the grid this time because they are squares. They're pretty easy to line up. So I also enjoy photography in my spare time. So one of the things that you learn as a photographer is to use the rule of thirds. And that just means, if you've seen JC, he explains it very well. He has a little grid that he uses, but basically you want to do things in thirds. So you would divide your paper into a grid of thirds. This would be on pretty much almost on the thirds line. The other thirds line would be here. So I don't tend to put things in the middle because on the thirds, whether it's this third, this third, this third, or this third, your eye is just more naturally drawn there. It just makes it just a nicer, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but it just, you do your sentiments the same way, like on the thirds line, and it just makes a nice even flow. So that's why I have it here and not straight in the center. Let's see, do I want to put one on the other side just for fun? maybe. Yeah, I kind of like that. So it's just another way to make some dimension on your background. I don't know why I can't think and talk. So this one I'm not loving. This one I do like. This one definitely needs something. So I'm gonna think about it and then I will return. And in the meantime, we have this that I could just add on to a piece of white cardstock, or I could use a different color. Let's try the purple wine. Not sure I'm gonna like that. But this is how I make my cards. To be completely honest with you, this is how I make my cards. This is how I talk to myself while I'm making my cards. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't like it. Maybe I'll try this. Maybe I won't try that. My brain is constantly going, and I will admit that probably my mouth is also going, even though I sit here all alone in my room. I'm guessing that I talk to myself pretty much all the time. So to me, that's almost too close to the color, so I don't love that. Aren't you glad you watched me do that? That was fun. So let me show you another example of what I did. I have a heart-shaped background die, and I did the same thing here. I stenciled, and then I added some of the hearts on top just to make it a little bit more interesting with those. But just to show you, this is a background. My daughter's friend is getting engaged this weekend. She and her new fiance-to-be love, what are these dogs? They love these. They each have one. So Bailey asked me to just make an engagement card using the dogs, and you know, that's what I did. So I did the hearts so that they pop up, and then I threw the puppies on there and the little diamond ring. So I thought that was kind of cute. But, you know, use what you have. That's what I always say. So I'm just going to glue this down. I just glued around the edges, and then I popped a little bit of glue in the center just to keep it lying straight. I did also take a purple marker, an alcohol marker, and just go around the edges because I wanted to cover up where the white edges were. So now, as you can see, there's a little bit of white edge on the top. So I will just trim that. I can use either my scissors or my paper trimmer. I'm just going to trim that down. And then we have a third background. So I came up with another idea. So what I did was I ink blended the same colors onto a piece of white cardstock, and then I just ran that through my die cutting machine. And now I'll have kind of the same trellis as before, but this time I will have different colored squares to work with. So I'm trying to keep them somewhat in order, just so that when I place them, I have them still in an ombre design. So I'm just gonna take my time to take these out. And again, it doesn't really matter too much because you can tell the different colors, but this just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so I have this background, and then I have all of my squares stuck to my sticky mat. I'm gonna just flip that upside down so that when I want the squares, I can grab them. So for this one, I'm actually going to do the entire background. I'm just gonna fill in every single little square here. And that's why I was trying to keep them in order, which I didn't completely succeed at, but I'm gonna do my best to put them back in order onto my cardstock. And now the entire background will be the squares, but I won't be using the actual trellis. So they'll look like can't talk. They'll look like they are floating on your cardstock. It's always good when you get to the end, let's see, 20 minutes later, and you have all the pieces, because there's always a chance that you miss one, but hopefully not. And then for the final review, you just have to make sure that you do it carefully enough that all of the squares stay in place. Oh, after all this work, I hope it's gonna work for me. And I'm so sorry if you're hearing my stomach growling. I've been at this all morning and I need to go eat some breakfast. I just came back from vacation though, so I already know there's no food in the house. So I don't really know what I'm gonna eat, which is why I haven't eaten yet. So this definitely is not a quick card. It is rather time consuming. Like I said, I think it took me 20 minutes to add these onto the card, but look at the effect. Oh, I love it. It's got the dimension on it, and it's just like a cool background. When I was doing it, I did notice that there was one flipped upside down. That was a lighter one that should have been at the top. The colors aren't completely perfect, but you know, you cover up the mistakes with a flower or a sentiment or whatever embellishment you're using, and nobody will notice the difference. So now I'll make it into a card. So here are my final cards that I made using the backgrounds that we worked on together. And the first one, this is the blue one that I didn't really love, but I actually think it is kind of cute with just a few little tiles around the edges. I did add some glitter pen to those squares just to give it a little bit of shine. I don't know if you can see it or not. And this is the Grand Dahlia layering die set from Altenew. These are all crafty flowers. And then the sentiment is also from an Altenew set, but I can't remember the name of it. So that's one. The next one was the one that we stenciled through the white trellis die. So this is the stenciled, and then we added the layer of squares down the side. And I added the smaller flower from the butterfly Ranunculus layering die set. I think that's the most beautiful flower. I love that one. And then this is the trellis that we did the ombre effect on. And then I added in an Altenew Crocus layering die set. I think the colors are just beautiful on that one. I really like that one. This one, though, I have to say is my favorite. This is the one that took 20 minutes to make the background by inlaying every single square. But I love the way it looks. There's so much texture on here. And this one I used the Garden Picks 3D die. This is an older flower that I have. Well, probably one of the first ones that I ever purchased, but I absolutely adore these flowers. They're so pretty. And the background to me is just, it's just an added dimension of fun. And then this one, I had another trellis, so I just cut parts of it out and I added on the Fantasy Floral 3D die. Again, it's another oldie that I've had forever, but I always come back to this one. I just really like it. So I added that onto the background that I did make you watch, so it did come in handy. So I hope you enjoyed these, and I will be back again later today with some more videos, which are also going to be adding dimension to your background using tools that you probably already have at home. So I hope to see you again soon.